Alright guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. Dude, what the frick is that intro? Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be ranking every controller that's best for every single map, but we're going to be excluding Icebox and Breeze because they are not in the map pool right now. We're just going to basically put what is the best controller for each map and why they are the best controller. So starting off with Bind, I'm going to have to go with Brim on S tier, because Brim is honestly just the best in general for Bind, just because he can clear off A short showers, and especially when you're rotating and going back to B, or if you're starting on B, you can smoke off hookah and garden like soon as possible. You still have that one extra smoke. And just as Molly and Stim has a lot of support potential for your teammates, and they can the Molly can definitely delay a lot of time. And especially his ult can clear out so much stuff like garden, U-Haul, post plant. The post plant can be really good when you have your Brim alive towards the post plant. So honestly, Brim is a really solid pick for Bind. I'm gonna put Omen and Astra probably like on A tier, because they are both viable for Bind, but it just Brim kind of like overlooks them just because of his potential that he can have. But Omen and Astra can still do like basically the same thing, and they have more reaching for the smokes because you can send their smokes a lot farther, especially with Astra. It can be all over the map. But the reason why I have them under a tier for Brim is because although Astra can have a lot of delay and post plant like potential, I feel like Brim just has a tad bit more of that potential, if that makes sense. Same with Omen. Omen is more of an individual type of controller as well, because he can make plays on his own with his kit. But yeah, that's what I think for them. Viper and Harbor, I'm gonna put them both for B tier, just because I feel like they can't really be a solo type of controller. They would need to pair it up with like one of the three controllers, both put on A tier and S tier. And I say that just because, especially in pro play, you never see a Viper alone. When they have a Viper or Harbor, it's usually Viper and Harbor, or Viper and Astra, or Viper or Brim. You never really see Viper or Omen, but it's usually like Viper, Astra, Viper, Brim, or Viper, Harbor, especially the type of like comp that you want to run with your team. I would say in a competitive setting, yeah, Viper Harbor is probably the best bet, because they can do they have a lot of potential if you have a coordinated team. That's why you see it a lot in pro play. But in ranked, I would say, if you're going for a solo, go Brim. But if you want to do a duo, I would say Viper Brim is probably your best bet, just because there's a lot of uncoordination that happens in ranked, so you would want to do that for sure. All right, so for the next map is Haven. And for Haven, dude, honestly, as a ranked player, I'm gonna have to go with Omen. And just in a competitive setting as well, Omen is probably the best bet you can go with, because Omen just has all that reachability with the smokes that can go across the map. And same with Astra. Honestly, I want to put Astra up there as well, just because of the delay that you can have with her util, with the suck and concuss. You can have a lot of things going on with her, and I want to kind of put her in A tier, because Astra requires a lot of team coordination, and not in ranked, that can be like not the best thing that can happen. So she is definitely up there if you have a good team with her. Brim, I'm probably gonna put A tier. You don't really see a lot of Brims on Haven, just because his smokes can't really go that far. So if you're on A with Brim and they need smokes towards C, it would take quite a bit. So like it'd be kind of hard. Harbor and Viper, I'm gonna put them both in. Probably, dude, I want to put like D tier for both of them, actually, just because I feel like Harbor and Viper are just not necessary on Haven, unless you pair them up with another controller. But in ranked, I would not want to see these two picked at all on Haven for sure. All right, so the next map is Split. For Split, I'm gonna have to put Astra, Omen for S tier. They are great controllers for this map, just because they can like basically control all sides of the map, just with their reachability on the spokes. Brim is definitely A tier, because he could still do the same, but it's just he has less reachability. So he could still do a lot of good potential. His post plant is really good, but when it comes to smokes, you would have to be playing in the middle of the map just to be in the position to actually smoke off for your teammates. Viper is definitely viable on this map. I would put her in B tier just because Viper can definitely cross off like a lot of line of sights. She can be really good for lurks with the conditioning wall that you can put. But I feel like Viper is definitely good when it's paired up with another controller, so a double controller type of comp. But alone it would be kind of difficult, especially when you only have that wall and orb. So I would definitely say pair her up with a second controller. But as a solo controller, she would not be like as good as the other solo controllers. Harbor, I'm gonna do the same because it kind of applies with Viper because he has the same kind of util with the wall and the orb, very similar to Viper's. So you want to pair him up with another controller for split. All right, now for the map Ascent, I'm gonna have to do Omen S tier, Astra S tier, and then Brim is most likely A tier. And then I'm gonna have to put Viper for C tier and then Harbor D tier. The reason why I put Omen and Astra both S tier is because they are really good like solo controllers, and so having them use their util for the team across the map from A to B or B to A is really crucial with their kit. Brim can do the same, but just remember that his smokes don't really go that far, so you have to be playing like dirt to the middle of the map. Omen and Astra don't really have that limitation where they have to play in the middle of the map, so they can play on A or B and still smoke off on the other side of the map. Viper and Harbor, I put them so low just because that they only have a wall and their orb is only used for their self. Viper and Harbor are kind of just useless unless you pair them up with another controller for a double controller type of comp. But as a solo controller, it is not the best decision. All right, the next map is Fracture. I believe in Fracture, Brim is probably your best bet. I think Brim is really good because especially you can literally smoke off towards A when you're on like B canteen. So yeah, you can with Brim you can smoke off basically all of the map because the map is really not the biggest compared to the other maps. So Brim is definitely really good when it comes to reachability because you only have to like move a little bit in spawn, and you're already ready to like fight with your team on either side. His util is really good for delaying and post plant, and definitely for retake as well with his ult. Brim is definitely a solid S tier for this map. Astra, I'm gonna put her for A tier just because of the delay that you can cause with her, and she has also the best reachability and compared to every controller because she can access the whole map with her astral form. Omen, I'm gonna say is also probably A tier just because you can have the one ways. If you're a one-way player, Omen is really good. You can definitely one way towards A main or towards B main, and definitely like fight off of that, but I would say you don't really need to in most terms. But Omen is really good in terms of his flash and his TPs and individual play, so Omen can definitely be good if he's used right, but I would say Astra and Brim are probably better options. So I would say probably I'll put him in B tier just because Astra and Brim are better options than him. Viper, I would say Viper could be used good in a good team setting. Just because I would say she probably needs to be paired up with another controller on this map. She can be used as a solo controller, but I think it would make it a little bit more difficult for the team. So I would say I'll put her for B tier as well there. And Harbor, I'll probably put him D tier just because I don't really see any benefits compared to the other controllers with Harbor. So I would say he would probably belong in D tier just because every other controller on the list does everything better. Harbor is just like, he's good on some maps but completely terrible on some other maps. So all right, next up is Pearl. On this map there are a lot of different comps that I've seen that work really well. But I'm gonna have to say S tier for this map is definitely Astra, just because the map is pretty big, and so with the utility you can use as Astra on Pearl, especially when they come in onto B, mid, or even on A, literally the whole map, you can use stars with team coordination obviously to delay and help your team like fight the specific points of entry from the enemy team. And I just feel like she's really good when it comes to like just helping out the team and delaying whatever needs to be done. And her post plant is really flawless. So I would say S tier for Pearl. Astra is really, really good. Brim, I'm gonna have to go with probably C tier because he can be used but his reachability on the smokes is really limited on this map. Since it is a bigger map, his ult would need to be very specific for when you do place the ult. But I don't really see a lot of brims on this map. Omen, I'm gonna put him B tier, just because he does have better reachability than Brim, and his util can be good for his individual play, like I was saying for the other maps. But I think it falls under like a good Omen to actually play for this map. Honestly, his kit, his util doesn't really delay as much as he can, like Brim or Astra, and I just feel like Astra overall has better utility for post play and delaying the enemy team, better than Omen. Omen doesn't really have that except for his blind. And then I'm gonna put Viper and Harbor both on A tier just because they're both similar agents, right, with their kits. I've seen a bunch of different comps where I've seen Harbor and Astra, Viper and Astra, both Viper and Harbor. I've seen all these different comps be all really good comps. So I feel like depending on what your team thinks in a competitive setting or even in ranked as well, if you guys are good at talking to each other, you can pull off any one of these three. But the reason why I have Astra alone in S tier is just because she would be a good solid S tier as a solo controller. But if you pair him up with Viper or Harbor, they would honestly all three be S tier if you pair them up as a double controller comp. All right, now for the last and final map, it is going to be Lotus. And for Lotus, I have also seen a lot of different comps for this. Omen on S tier, Astra for S tier, Viper for S tier. Because these three, any one of them are really good as solo. Not as much as Viper. I would say Viper, I'm gonna put her back at A tier just because Viper is really good when you pair him up to another controller like this. But I have seen comps where she is alone as Viper, so it depends. I would say she's both A tier and S tier, just depending on how good you are with Viper and what you can do with Viper. But I would say all three of these are applicable to what I said in like the previous maps that I was explaining about them. So I'm gonna just put her A tier for the average Viper player. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna put Harbor for B tier because I've seen him really good with paired up with other controllers. But him alone is probably not the best bet. And then I'm gonna put Brim as well for B tier just because Brim, Lotus is a pretty decent sized map, so if you're on one side of the map, you can't really smoke on the other side when they really truly need it. So I would say Brim is probably not your best bet for a pick here. I'm also gonna move him down to C tier because I don't really see Brims a lot on this map, just because every other controller here can do a better job than Brim on this map. I feel like especially when it comes to like Breeze and Icebox, they're not in the map pool right now, but when they were, I feel like there was always like that one specific, it was always Viper for both of those maps. Viper was always S tier just because like she would basically cover everything you would need. And I feel like that's why they probably took it out, just because they want to make it viable for other controllers to be in the mix. They're probably going to fix that and have it viable for all controllers in the future. If they ever do bring those maps back. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below of this tier list. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm right. If you guys have any changes that you would want to change. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. As I always say, always drink water. Always stay epic. Have a great rest of your day, guys. See ya.